Hey there, welcome back to our very first session in the brand new Unshakable series, the confidence series for you as a woman in tech. If you've joined me before, it's so good to have you back here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And if this is your first time here, I'm so glad you found us. Please pop in the comments, share with me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. It's always good to check that you can hear me because technology. Let me know where in the world you're joining from as well. One of the things I really love about the work that I get to do is I get to support women in particular, but people all over the globe. And I mean, that's something that I don't take for granted. I love every day. So let me know where you're joining from. I know many of you are in North America and Europe, but I know we've had a few people from other continents joining. So I'd love to hear where you're from. And it just allows me to make sure that this is all working as well. In fact, let me bring up my chat. There's always a delay, by the way, if you comment on me receiving them. So occasionally I've ended a live stream and there was a whole load of comments that I hadn't seen. So I'm going to try and make sure I check all those more as we're going along today. We'll give people a moment to join, but if you're watching the replay, stick with me because we are going to dive into something that has power to change the trajectory of your career, what I call the confidence gap. We're going to talk about what it is, why it's not your fault, because just stop blaming ourselves for this, right? And how to start closing it. We're going to do all of that today. Now, for those of you who have not met me before, I'm Tony Collis. I'm an executive coach for women in tech. I'm a board advisor. I'm a former tech executive myself. My work is all about helping brilliant women just like you. And thank you for the ladies who've already popped into the chat and let me know that they can hear me and share where they're from. But brilliant women, I want to help all of you become visible, strategic, and influential, like you're capable of being, but often we're not recognized as being. Last week, we finished off a 4-part series on thinking like an executive, the tools, the techniques to show up as an executive and how you think and operate so you get noticed at that level. And now we're doing some of the work that underpins that thinking. To think like an executive, you need confidence because when we have low confidence, our brain literally takes up cognitive load away from problem solving, away from thinking about what you need to be saying, away from supporting the person in front of you, away from being really present. If we have low confidence, our IQ drops. So for you to think like an executive, all the things I've been talking about over the last couple of months, you need to have the confidence of an executive. And this applies well before you're in the executive room. If you have ambitions, you need to operate like you're out there even before you're there. And if you are there, you absolutely need this confidence. Some of the most incredible women I work with have been held back because they're waiting for permission. They're downplaying their contributions. It's costing them promotions, opportunities, influence, and it's heartbreaking. It's one of the reasons why I do this work, because I truly believe, and I say this all the time, I truly believe the human race deserves better technology. And the fastest way to better technology is to have more diversity at the decision-making table. So we build products that represent the needs of the entire human race. And women are a huge part of that. We're 51% of the species after all. So we need to be involved in tech companies. We need to be involved in the decision making. We need to be involved in every step of a product creation, how it's sold, how it's marketed, how we work with each other. If we don't, the human race is actually losing out. And I am just so passionate about that piece. So I want you operating at the level that your ambition says you should be at and that you are capable of being at. And I want us to let go of the confidence being the blocker on that. So over the next few weeks, we're going to dive into this series called Unshakable. We're going to dig into the mindset shifts, the practical strategies that are going to help you show up with the kind of leadership confidence that gets you noticed, respected, and rewarded. I don't want you faking it. I want you to be there without burning out and without feeling like you have to change who you are. So I would love you to dive into the comments and tell me why you're here. Just one word. What does confidence mean to you? One word. You can either tell me a word of like, this would how I feel to be more confident, or a word of how you're feeling right now if you're struggling with that. Maybe, you're feeling shaken. Maybe you're feeling, I can't speak up. Maybe you're thinking, if I had more confidence, I'd have opportunity. Pop in the comments. What does confidence mean to you? Let me start with what I mean when I say confidence gap. This isn't about whether you feel shy or bold, introverted or extroverted. It's the gap between your actual capabilities and the confidence you project in the rooms and moments that really matter. Because here's what I see over and over again in my coaching practice: women who are overprepared, overqualified, and under-delivering, yet they hesitate to speak up until they're 100% sure. They're under-delivering because they're not sure. They actually appear like they're over-delivering to themselves, but they under-deliver on what's truly possible because they soften their language with "I think," or "I'm not sure, but," or they only share ideas once they've been fully baked for weeks. Thank you to Elizabeth. She says belonging. Confidence means belonging. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit because there's something called outsider syndrome, which is a lack of belonging. So I love that you've called that out. Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing. Meanwhile, you might have somebody else who's often less prepared. You can see where I'm going with this stereotype here. Less prepared, less experienced, but they're confidently throwing ideas on the table, asking for opportunities, and getting the spotlight. That's the confidence gap. The gap between someone who softens their language, who's over prepared, who's saying, "I think, I'm not sure, but," versus the person who honestly doesn't know as much as you, but gets the spotlight anyway. It's not about the skills. You've got those. I know you're not stupid if you are a leader as a woman in the tech industry. You have to do so much more than your male peers just to get to who you are today. It's about how you show up. It's about how you're perceived. It's about how consistently you put yourself in the line of sight of the opportunities you deserve. Here's a really hard truth. In leadership, perception is everything. It drives opportunity just as much as competence. If you have a great idea and no one's hearing it, it's the perception of you. If you can see something but nobody else wants to see it, they just don't hear it. For some reason, the perception of you is the problem. Perception is perhaps you're unsure, you're hesitant, you're still proving yourself, and people are like, well, why should we trust her if she doesn't trust herself? They won't consciously be saying that, but that's what their unconscious brain is doing. You're filtering yourself, and so they continue that filter. So you are going to be overlooked no matter how good you are at your job. Rashmi, I hope I said your name right, my dear. Confidence is about conviction, confidence is conviction of being able to do anything. That's amazing. I love that. Just to start this off with a story, I had one lady come to me a little over a year ago, and I'm telling you this story to show you what is possible here. So building confidence takes energy and consistent action. So I want you to have proof, if you will, that this is possible. She came to me just over a year ago. She'd been put on a PIP. For those of you who don't know, that's a performance improvement plan. She was incredible, but she was also stressful, and she was very upset, of course, being put on a PIP. She thought she might be out of work in a few weeks. We immediately started work on what's going on here. A combination of support in terms of what would we do if she did get let go, but also how to ensure that she could recover through this PIP situation. We did a deep dive on what was going on, and almost everything, there was lots of bits and pieces, but almost all of it came down to an underlying root cause: her lack of confidence. She didn't share her ideas, even when they were amazing. Her lack of confidence meant she didn't share with her boss what was really going on with her team. She didn't stand up to her boss, who was also a bit of a bully, right? And her lack of confidence meant her team were walking all over her. They were underperforming, and she was unable to call them out. They would just do their own thing. If they didn't like what she suggested, they thought it was a suggestion. She worked so hard at trying to convince them, and they were just walking all over her because they were bad people. But she was lacking conviction because she didn't have confidence in herself. They saw it as a suggestion instead of requirement. Short story here, but we tackled all of that. She came off the PIP. 12 months later, so it's just over 2 months ago, she got her second promotion since I started working with her. She's now a GM, and she's responsible for 2 billion in revenue. Right? She's gone from a PIP to 2 promotions in a year. That's what's possible when we deal with our confidence issues, because you are brilliant. I really want you to know that you are brilliant. What we're trying to do here is take you from being perceived as an underperformer to the truly exceptional leader that you are. Because I bet you're extraordinary. As I said, I think if you're a woman in a room full of men, it takes a certain amount of ambition and drive to show up in a male-dominated world. We know we have to overperform compared to men. The data is out there, right? So this is something that we can absolutely tackle. And I want you to, first of all, accept that this is not personal. It's not a personal failing. It's not because you're not brave enough. It's the result of a lifetime of conditioning. As women, we get rewarded for being perfect, not speaking up early. We're rewarded for being a team player, not being the squeaky wheel who calls things out. We watch people who push their ideas get called confident, but then we get called bossy or aggressive for the same behavior. We're called well done for being people pleasers, but when we want to have our say, we find that it's very uncomfortable. We get called, excuse my language, but an asshole. We fall into the asshole trap if we stop being a people pleaser. So we've had a lifetime of conditioning that says, make sure you keep everybody happy. That's more important than anything else, because we self-regulate down. We wait. We make sure our work is perfect before putting it forward. We don't properly challenge underperforming teams and team members until it's really late. And instead, we try and mentor them to success. They don't just keep us invisible. This harms us. It harms our reputation. Our teams actually underperform, even if they think you're a great boss because you're lovely and mentory, but you as a team aren't performing the way you should be potentially because your team doesn't take you as seriously, or your peers aren't taking you seriously, or your boss and their peers aren't taking you seriously. There's so many layers to this, and a lot of the time we don't even see it. So for a second, I want you to have a think. Have you ever been in a meeting and thought, I should have said that? Or I had that idea, but someone else voiced it first. Or I've had team members underperforming, but I'm struggling to get the message across. I don't understand why they're not hearing me. If any of those resonate, drop a little light bulb in the comments. If you think, I should have said that, or why didn't I say that before they did? Or why am my team not hearing me? Light bulbs. This is where confidence costs, because in those moments, your potential isn't being seen. So today we're going to unpack what's going on, and we're going to start closing that gap, right? Now, one thing I want to say is I want you to be authentic in this work. I'm not about faking confidence or pretending to be someone you're not. I think great leadership is authentic. It's you. It's showing up as the best version of you, but I don't want you to be somebody you're not. I don't want you to be emulating the men in the room. Part of why we are so valuable as women is because we are different. You know what I was saying at the beginning about why I want the tech industry to have women at the table for the benefit of the technology? It's because we're different. So let's stop with being more like men. Stop looking at men and thinking, I wonder if I can try that. Let's just let go of that. You are you. You are amazing. What we need to help you do is close that confidence gap and learn how to show up as yourself. Feel better in meetings instead, right? This is not expensive. It's not hard. It's uncomfortable. But let me just tell you another cost of confidence, actually, talking about expensive in terms of like there's no magic bullet or something. This is expensive not to do this work, okay? Because it can literally cost you hundreds of thousands in missed promotions, raises, opportunities, bonuses. But it's also expensive because visibility, you're less seen. People think of you when opportunities arise, but then dismiss you. Your influence costs. If your voice isn't shaping decisions, other voices will, and they might not represent your ideas or your team's ideas. Actually, there's a lady I've just started working with, and the problem she's got is one of her team just doesn't want to take her seriously. It's a very ambitious team member, and that team member just seems to think everything my client says is optional, right? That influence is so key. And then leadership. If you aren't leading with conviction and authority because you're concerned about upsetting people, that people pleaser, your team suffers. There is the lack of results. They miss the opportunity to improve because the feedback isn't getting across, or maybe there's no feedback at all because it's uncomfortable to us. Team morale actually then suffers. They might like you as a person, but if they don't have a boss who's actually challenging them to grow and up level and meet where they need to be at, you can be a nice supportive person, but you're not the boss they need. And the other cost is our energy. Overthinking every contribution, over preparing for every meeting, replaying conversations in our head. That is quite frankly exhausting. Believe me, been there, done that, got all the t-shirts. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. So easy to say that, so hard to fix it. But the dangerous part is the confidence gap is usually not entirely visible to us. It's crystal clear to people around you, but they won't say you're lacking confidence. Here's what they say instead. She's not ready for the next step. She doesn't seem to have a vision. She's more comfortable executing than leading. She's not able to deal with underperforming teams. I remember being told early on in my career as an early line manager that my direct report wasn't going to get a promotion because my boss, my skip level boss, said she's not ready for that next step. But what it was is she was lacking confidence. I wasn't able to really diagnose that at that point. I knew I didn't agree with that decision, but I couldn't articulate why. Here's what's happening. Those doors are closing behind closed doors. The meetings where promotions are decided, the meetings where opportunities are being doled out and you're not in the room, those meetings behind closed doors are closing on your behalf without you even knowing they're there. Okay. So let's have a talk about what can we do. The first thing is to recognize what's going on. I want to talk about four myths. I'm like, how many myths did I have written down in my notes? Some myths. Let's go see how many I can come up with about what is stopping us playing bigger. Okay. I think it's really important to unpack this so you know what might be going on in your own head, because none of us are the same. None of us are identical, right? I want you, as you're listening to this, going like, that's me, that's not me, right? Because we're not all the same. And if you know what is happening with you, you can start moving forward. That's why I think coaching is great, because it's personalized. But this is general. So like, I want you to pay attention. Anything that resonates, like, okay, that's me. Write it down, because when you know, you can do something about it. Okay. Myth number 1, confidence is a personality trait. You might say to yourself, I'm just not naturally confident. This is probably one of the number one things I hear, and it's nonsense. It's a bit like saying people are natural leaders. By the way, that's a whole other conversation for another day. But confidence, like leadership, is a skill. Unless you're a narcissist, it is a set of behaviors and strategies that you practice until something becomes second nature. It is doing something 10 times. Remember when you first learned to drive? If you're normal, it was probably a little bit scary the first time you got behind that wheel. If it wasn't, maybe there's a problem, right? But now, probably, if you've been driving for 20, 30 years, you're like, I don't even think about it anymore. Confidence comes from practice. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be extroverted or someone you're not. You just have to learn what it looks like to be in leadership where you are taking action in your style, in your voice, where every day you build your confidence. It is not a personality trait. It is something you build. Myth number 2, confidence means you're never unsure. Quite the contrary. You can feel uncertain and still lead decisively. Confidence is multifaceted, right? Confidence comes from previous action, having worked out, but also it comes from, I'm a confident leader, even if this particular thing here, I'm uncertain about. You show up with an innate confidence of, I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to be in this room. This is a new situation, but I know I'm okay. Most of the time, we don't have all the answers. In fact, I would say the higher you go, the fewer answers you actually have, the more ambiguity you have to deal with. That's one of the top things I work with executives on, is handling ambiguity. What we do have confidence in is how to communicate clarity, remove ambiguity when we can, find direction by figuring things out, by coming from a place of action. You don't get clarity from inaction. You get clarity from doing something, getting data, and then saying, okay, we've got more data now. What do we do? Confidence really should be, in my mind, being comfortable with ambiguity and knowing that action lifts the fog, because action and gathering more data move things forward. So that's myth number 2. Confidence means you're never unsure is not true. Myth number 3, you'll feel confident after you've achieved more. This one is like one of those ones, a little bit. Yes, confidence comes from action. The more times you do something, the more you have confidence in that area. But this can keep us stuck. If we believe the higher up we get, the more confident we'll be. If you say to yourself, I'll speak up more once I'm more senior. I'll pitch my big idea once I've proven myself a bit longer. I'll go for that promotion when I've done this. Or I'll go for that next level job. I'll start applying for that when. Confidence isn't the result of success. It's the fuel for it. Waiting for it means you'll always be waiting. Everything you do that's new, you will lack confidence because that's human. Waiting for magical confidence boosting mindset meditations to magically make you go, oh, look at this, I can do anything. I get so many people go, give me confidence techniques. And I'm like, confidence techniques are a myth. I'm a big believer in breathing, yoga, meditation. What they're actually doing is making you more resilient to the discomfort of something new. Confidence comes from being in that discomfort, from the experience, from going through something and realizing, oh, that went fine. If you don't get uncomfortable, you will never get the experience, which will mean you are never going to gain the confidence. So it is a myth to say that confidence will magically go away once you've achieved more. Confidence goes away from taking action, not waiting for something to magically happen around you. Okay, the fourth myth. Confidence is about sounding confident. It's kind of like the fake it till you make it stuff. You can mask the voice, the tone, the eye contact, the power poses, but if your mindset and inner narrative are still telling you, don't mess up, it will leak out in subtle ways. True confidence comes from alignment. When you are self-talking, your decisions and your external presence all point in the same direction. People will realize that you don't really believe in what you're saying because you don't believe in yourself. You've got to realize that you're okay and that you can do this. And you can have a low confidence in the thing that you're about to do, but you can have confidence in your ability to survive, to be resilient, to stand up for yourself, for how you're going to move through this discomfort. So the reason I just shared those 4 myths isn't just to give you a pep talk, right? It's because I want you to start identifying where these are showing up, and it's time to start rewriting these beliefs. Every strategy I'm going to share in a few minutes will feel temporary. In fact, this whole series of Unshakable, it's going to be one thing after another you can try, but it's so easy to default back to old patterns. So before you move into the how, you've got to understand, which things am I believing? So I want you to drop into the comments, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Myth number 1, do you believe confidence is a personality trait, or did you until just now? Do you believe myth number 2, confidence means you're never unsure? Do you believe myth number 3, or did you until just now, that you'll only feel confident once you've achieved more, once you've got there, then suddenly magical confidence will appear? Or myth number 4, is confidence about sounding confident more than it is innate? Tell me in the comments, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or several of them. Let's talk about what is holding you back. I want you to be self-aware. I want you to understand outsider syndrome. So last time we spoke about insider syndrome, it's where you feel like an outsider, which when you're the only woman in the room or the only one of any other underrepresented group in the room, you will feel like an outsider. You walk into that room and you feel like you don't belong. I personally think this is why we see a lot of minority groups and women in leadership apparently having more imposter syndrome. There's debate in the literature about this. But imposter syndrome, in my mind, is about needing to prove yourself in some way, feeling that you've conned your way there, seeing you have to be superwoman. But outsider syndrome, this is a phrase I've come up with. Outsider syndrome, simply put, is you don't fit in. And we know our IQ drops in that situation. And I think that's a huge part of what's holding us back, is we're different. We look different. We speak differently. We have a different lived experience. We tackle conflict differently. Outsider syndrome can therefore fuel low confidence feelings because we look different. We over prepare. Every word is rehearsed. We people please and avoid conflict. We play small in meetings to blend in because we don't want to feel like an outsider. We lower our visibility. We miss giving out those credibility signals. So even when we do something, people view us as less credible, and we limit our influence. But I want you to start with a mindset shift. You have been invited to the table you are at, but now you've got to show up and own it. You were invited there. Somebody believed you were good enough. Somebody believed you should be there. You've now got to show them that you belong there. You were viewed as that, but you've got to own your seat. So I want you to stop hesitating when there's challenges. You are flawed. You're human. That's okay. You're going to be just fine. I want others to see that you have an agenda for your voice in that room. Drop me an eyeballs or something in the comments if you've ever been in a meeting and thought, I'll just keep my head down this time. Because I think that's so common. Because I want us to shift, to start owning our voice in the room. Okay, let's give you some practical tips now for how to close the confidence gap. We're going to be building on this week after week. So today was really about understanding what's going on. So I'm hoping you've got that picture. But I do want to just give you some practical stuff to get going with, because I know you all love doing stuff, which is why I love this. So start with the understanding. That's so important. You do this work by understanding, but here we go. These aren't theory. They are small, powerful shifts you can start doing today. If you do this for every workday for the next 2 weeks before our next session in 2 weeks' time, you will be different in 2 weeks' time. I promise you. But pick one thing. It's hard to layer on too many things at once. We tend to drop the ball. Pick one thing. So here are 4 things you can do. First of all, challenge yourself to speak sooner in the conversation. Most of us, we wait until we're very, very well prepared, very rehearsed, or we have the perfect point. Here's the problem. When the conversation has moved on, your voice gets lost. So my challenge, if you want to take challenge number 1, is to contribute within the first 10 minutes of a meeting. Now, don't worry about contributing something meaningful. What we're trying to do is just retrain your brain that you're okay to contribute early. I'd almost like have some stock phrases to use if you're really struggling with this. What we're trying to do is signal to your brain that you have presence and authority before doubt kicks in, and that you'll see what happens, which is the world didn't end. You've got to tell yourself afterwards, like, I'm okay. Nobody shouted me down. That was okay. But I just want you to, if you're going to take challenge number 1, speak within the first 10 minutes of a meeting you wouldn't normally speak in. Okay. Challenge number 2, swap I think for I recommend. We're going to talk more about language swaps, I think, next time or the time after. I can't quite remember. But I want you to realize that language is currency. I think sounds tentative. I recommend is decisive. Even if the recommendation is up for discussion, framing it in this way positions you as someone who leads decisions, not just comments on them. I often say to emerging leaders and new executives, what you need to do is turn up with, like, here's the problem statement. Here's my suggested solution. This is the one I recommend. Here are the ones I've dismissed. You're showing you're working. You're talking about the ones you've dismissed, but you're going in with a recommendation, right? You're saying, I do recommend this. You're not saying, here are the options on the table. What do you think? You're saying, I recommend. You can start this very early in your career, and it's going to be game changing. So swap I think for recommend. Okay, challenge number 3, ask 1 high quality question per meeting. This actually kind of lines up with speak sooner in a conversation. One of the best things to do if you're like, I don't know what to say, is to have a question. And we actually talked about questions 2 sessions ago in the Think Like an Exec, because one of the most important questions you can ask is about alignment. So if you're not ready to make a big statement, ask a question that raises the altitude of the conversation. Go back to one of my previous live events to really dig into this, the one question you need to ask in every meeting, right? One great question is, how does this align with our Q4 goals? Really what you're asking is, why are we focused on this right now? A lot of the time, we get in the weeds and we forget why we're doing something. And we end up doing something that isn't strategically aligned because we've just gone so far into the weeds. So be the person that raises the altitude of the conversation. This is going to shift the perception from task-focused to strategic, and you're going to get the kudos for doing that, even if you didn't offer anything else. So ask 1 high-quality question per meeting. Okay, shift or challenge number 4, practice pausing. I say this as somebody who struggles with a pause. You don't have to fill every silence. Leaders hold space. Trust others will lean in. Try pausing just for 1 to 2 seconds after making a point. It signals confidence and gives weight to your words. Even, I'm quite a fast speaker, I've been told, but I try and add in pauses. They're faster pauses than somebody who could speak slower, but I give space for the ideas to permeate. At least that's what my public speaking coach told me years ago, or tried to impart in me. You don't have to implement any of these things all at once, right? What I recommend is to pick one. So let's just go through them again. Speak sooner, which can be a question. Swap I think for I recommend, and ask 1 quite high quality question per meeting, and practice pausing. I'd love to know, which are you going to try first? I really, really want you to pick something to try in there over the next 2 weeks before we do this again in 2 weeks' time. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one are you going to try? Ideally 1, maybe 2 tops. These are starter moves. The real transformation is going to come when we align your mindset, your language, your presence, so they reinforce each other every single day. And we're going to work on that in the coming weeks of this series. But this is going to give you a kickstart. This is immediately going to change how people view you and perceive you, the way you're speaking, the way you're holding yourself. And it's going to give you some resilience, because if you do the work of, I did that and I'm okay. It doesn't have to be, I did that and look, it's magic. We just need to reinforce in your brain that nothing bad happened, or if something bad does happen, that you recovered fine. So I want you to then pause at the end of the day and say, what did I do today that challenged me? And how am I okay? Just a couple of minutes. What you're doing is giving your brain space to go, oh, actually, I'm fine. If we just whittle on and do all these things and don't think about it, we don't retrain our brain that we're safe and fine. The real transformation comes when we realize we're okay, but you've got to slow your brain down to do that. Okay, let me wrap this up because I know we're at time with a couple of reminders. First of all, the confidence gap is real. It's not just believe in yourself. It's about recognizing you need the presence, the mindset, the clarity, the conviction to show up every single day. But while you know your confidence can be up here and you're down here, you're actually costing your career so much. Internal and external factors keep us below our true performance level. Our feelings of discomfort are a source of opportunity, but if we're not leaning into it, they keep us in the confidence gap zone. And then finally, we also discussed some practical low-risk shifts that you can start using today. So I would love to hear from you. What shift are you going to start making? What myth are you going to be like, okay, that's a myth, I'm going to let it go? What micro moments are you going to start taking on this week, this coming week, next week? Let's go over next week, or maybe today. Maybe if it's the beginning of your work day, you're going to take some of this on. I want you thinking, I'm ready for more. And I can feel my confidence holding me back, but I'm ready to change, right? It's not about fixing yourself. It's about leading yourself to build that confidence. And in fact, that is the fastest way to close your confidence gap, is lead yourself through this growth, lead yourself through this discomfort. If you are ready for more, by the way, don't forget that you can grab my free free promotion readiness scorecard, which does include confidence, by the way, strategic gaps, visibility gaps, influence gaps. Where does that play into your promotion readiness? It's a great way just to diagnose what's holding you back, even if you're not going for promotion right now. So if you want that, DM me the word scorecard and I'll get that to you right away. But in 2 weeks' time, we are going to go further. So this was really a diagnosis session, I guess. And we're going to go deeper into how you're showing up in high stakes moments. We're going to be talking about owning the room, presence, your power, and how to be heard. We're going to talk about power language swaps, the words and phrases that undercut you. And when you do this, again, we're talking about taking action that's going to train your brain that you're safe and that you're able, because you're going to get signals from others simply by using different words that you are being treated seriously. We're going to talk about how to project authority without overcompensating. We're going to talk about how to land your point without over-explaining, something I think we so often struggle with. I mean, here's the interesting thing as a coach. I can point out to somebody that they're over-explaining, and then I will go do it myself to my family. So it's really, over-explaining is one of those ones that it's hard to do, but it can make such a difference in the workplace. Small adjustments as well that we can make to have a big difference in how we're heard. And then, of course, if we have time, I want to talk about body language and the voice and how that signals credibility. So 2 weeks' time, same place, 2 weeks, mark your calendar. But as we wrap up, I want to hear from you in the comments. First of all, any questions you've got, including things you want me to tackle in the coming weeks. I know this series is a result of a request, by the way. We're doing confidence series because somebody requested it. So I'm here to support you. If you have requests, I want to hear them. If you've got questions, I want to hear them. But also, I would love for you to tell me in the comments, what's one meeting, conversation, or moment where you're going to tackle something this week in your confidence, where you're going to use one of those 4 tools, the speaking sooner, swapping I think for I recommend, asking a meeting, a high quality question in a meeting, or practicing that pause. What meeting, event, situation are you going to do that in? Let's commit to that. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's do something that's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's going to be a bit of a game changer in how you're showing up, how people perceive you, but also in how you are going to train yourself to realize that you're safe and that you can build your confidence. Let me know in the comments as we wrap up. But I will hopefully see you in 2 weeks' time. I will drop the link momentarily in the chat once I wrap up. I can't do it while we're live, technology. So I will see you in 2 weeks' time for owning the room. And remember, confidence isn't about being fearless, but it's moving through discomfort to